Okay, so for 30 hours so far, I have been making a Legend of Zelda fan game. Now, granted, it hasn't been completely 30 hours. It hasn't been just 30 hours. There's a lot of time that I've put into it off screen. But let's get this video started and rolling just because. But anyway, for those of you who want a non-narrated version of this video, it's right up there, and it's going to be on the channel. So if you just want to watch it with just the music, it'll be there. But anyway, so yeah, I've been putting in a lot of work into this. So I'm just going to be discussing a little bit of what I'm doing and just the thoughts that I was having at the time. So right here I'm working on version 2 of my Link model for this game. You'll see what version 1 looked like on my first development log. This is not a development log, grant you. This is just a discussion of the first 30 hours of the development of this game. In my development logs, I'm going to be talking more about specific things, specific to the game regarding ideas and showing off special things. Like you might get to see like a finished model that's animated, or you might get to see a finished location. But right now we're not doing that. Right now we're just seeing the time lapse on me working on all of this for 30 hours. Granted, this video is not 30 hours long. It is 30 minutes long. So I condensed every hour that I worked into 1 minute, and then I compiled all 30 of those hours together. So it's 30 hours and 30 minutes, which means that you are saving a ton of time by watching this time lapse. Granted, you could watch some of my other time lapses. They're just 10 minutes long, but there's a lot more of them, and they're a little bit slower, so you can catch everything that I'm doing. But in this one, it's a little bit harder to follow, so if you want to see the progress of 30 hours, this is what you want to watch. But if you want to see like a little bit slower work, you can watch one of my other time lapses, and there's 10 of them at this moment. Or maybe there's 11. Actually, I think there's 11 at this point. But anyway, granted, that's not an entire 30. Like I said, not all of it is recorded. There's quite a bit of work that I did in between those hours, just because of the fact that there were times where I didn't have an hour to just sit down and record myself. And you'll see a little bit, if you notice, you'll see a little bit of that happen in my time lapses. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show any specific examples here just because everything's going so fast. But I learned a lot of texture work. A lot of the early texture work that I did was done in Anime Studio. It is animation software that also has a vector-based art. That has a vector-based art system to it. And because of that vector-based system, it was really easy to like adjust shapes and such for me. So that's why I ended up using that a lot early on. But as you'll see, as development goes on, I'll actually start to transition over to KRITA and start just using that from now on. And I'm starting to learn how to use GIMP, so you may see me start to use GIMP in the future as well. But right now, I'm just using KRITA at this moment, but in these time lapses, I used to use Anime Studio, and you'll see how I'll transition from making majority of my custom textures in Anime Studio over into KRITA. And right here, I'm working on KRITA Village, because I'm building everything from scratch, because I want to kind of like up the scale of everything, make everything a little bit bigger, and like kind of like model out and bring in some more details. Like, what if there wasn't just these giant walls here? What if there was a little bit more geometry, or a little bit more area that you could explore here and here and here? And also, there's probably going to be, you're going to see a lot more houses being done here. But a lot of these textures for Link, like every single one of these textures for Link is going to be completely overhauled by the end. I don't... Just because of the fact that I lack experience or knowledge to be able to do that. But I will say one thing, it was good experience and I learned quite a bit. And right here you're going to see me start to use texture painting. Now granted, whenever I started doing this, I never texture painted before, so I was kind of like experimenting here. But as you'll see, I'll like make out the textures on the map and then I'll like port it into Anime Studio, yeah, to like make the textures and like paint over them. I did a lot of that, and at this point I was just trying to get the textures done so that I could move on to other things. And I bet you're wondering why Zelda is dressed like a soldier at this point, and that is story details which I will later reveal in a future devlog. But anyway, this game is going to be made for, I think at this point, I'm going to be making it in Godot. Just because of the fact that even if this game goes nowhere, I am going to be making my own indie game that is exactly in the same Nintendo 64 Zelda style. So I'm going to... Basically, I'm using this game as like practice grounds to like make my own game. So, like, trying to master and, like, match that art aesthetic of the original Nintendo 64 Zelda games was quite a lot of fun. Actually, it's been quite a lot of fun, and I've been learning quite a bit. For one thing, through doing research and just watching videos, I learned that the max texture size for, Nintendo 64, the max texture size it could comprehend was 64 by 64 pixels. So, I didn't know that, so a lot of these textures were scaled down to 100 pixels by 100 pixels just because I didn't have a big idea what the standard was supposed to be. But you'll see a lot of these can be converted down to 64 by 64 pixels just because I learned that along the way. And like doing things like making character rigs, that's something I've done before, so I didn't really have to do too much there wasn't all that much learning that went into that. And I do a lot of watching videos, tutorials, behind the scenes, just to learn how to do stuff and just basically become a better modeler all in general. One thing that I've learned is that just because you're modeling in low poly doesn't mean that high poly modeling techniques don't apply. They absolutely do apply in these instances. So another thing that I wanted to do with this fan game was that I wanted to make it to where, you know what, I'm not even going to talk about that. You know what, I probably ought to talk about it just because we're getting to this point. But anyway, I wanted to make it to where the game is a lot more seamless, so like the interiors are all going to be modeled out. So there's not going to be separate maps for interiors. It's all just going to be on the same plane. And honestly, the Nintendo 64 probably could not handle this much geometry as you're going to see done to KRITA Village. And I've done a lot of work to KRITA Village at this point. Most of it, which was done behind the scenes. It's just kind of awesome just watching this all unfold before my eyes, watching it from start to finish. But it's definitely been a lot of fun. A lot of times you'll like see me like switch from Blender over to YouTube, and that's because I'll listen to a lot of background music. It doesn't matter what kind of background music it is, I'll just listen to any background music while I'm modeling, because it helps me get into the zone. But as you see here, I had to model out some interior textures just because of the fact that there were no interior textures for Ocarina of Time, because there weren't many interiors modeled out because everything was projection mapped, which is a word you probably all don't know because of the fact that you're probably watching this just because of the fact that you want to learn how to do this kind of thing and you probably aren't experienced with it. no offense or anything, but to those of you who are, you know exactly what projection mapping is. That's whenever you take a bunch of images and then you like kind of trick the camera into thinking that the image is three-dimensional whenever it actually isn't. But one thing is that I tried to match the lighting of the original interior, so you'll like see a lot of reference images on the side here, because I like to use reference because I am a good artist and I'm a good modeler. It doesn't matter if you're doing low poly or not, it doesn't matter if you're doing the most cartooniest art style ever. Always use references. It'll make your art look way better. I cannot understate this enough. Use references. So I took screenshots of from Ocarina of Time and used them all side by side. So I took screenshots of all sorts of different angles in the KRITA village, as you'll see. Just because I wanted to be able to match the aesthetic and like match everything just perfectly. So a lot of these textures that I'm using, I bet you wonder where I'm getting a lot of these textures from. I'm getting them from the HD Ocarina of Time texture pack. I'm sure if you search up on Google, you'll find it. It's the HD texture pack for the Nintendo 64. So don't get it mistaken with the 3DS HD texture pack. But in all reality, I do use some of the textures from Ocarina of Time 3D, as you'll see here. And right here, I am modeling out an NPC from scratch because I am an idiot. Honestly, it would save me a lot more time. It would have saved me a lot more time to just create out a base NPC, just a base human model, and just use that across all the NPCs. But no, I had to take the hard road and just model out everything from scratch and just make it tailor-made for this specific NPC. Not to mention the fact that all these textures, almost all these textures, are done in Anime Studio, which means that they have a lot less of that artistic quality. But you'll see later that I realized that was a mistake, and so I will repent for it. Oh. And then, right here, I'm getting into foliage making, which was my absolute least favorite part out of all this development so far. I don't know why, but creating a bunch of small objects to inhabit the scene and just flesh it out, it's just kind of irritating to me. I just don't like working with small objects like this. It's just kind of annoying, and I did not enjoy it, but at least I got the experience for it. And as you'll see here, I tried to mess with particles a little bit with a particle system in order to like spread everything out. That did not go well. It had been too long since I had last played with particles, but you'll see later where I actually pull it off. But later, a lot of these, but before I talk about that, a lot of times I would like scroll through just the texture library to see, okay, what else can I make here? What textures do I have for, what else can I make that I have textures for? And so I did a lot of that scrolling. But as you'll see here, like right here, I'm using textures from Ocarina of Time 3D. I pulled some textures from Kakiri Forest for the leaves on this huge tree right here, which will be inhabiting a scene very shortly. And then here I did a lot of cartography, which is map making, if you will, if you didn't know that. So I did a lot of drawing there, because I had to map up everything, and then I had to make sure everything was to scale. Mapping out Kakiri Forest, the Lost Woods, and then the Deep Woods, which is where Link is going to emerge from at the beginning of the game. Oh, so the Deep Woods I wanted to be really dense and make it look like you could easily get lost, while at the same time making the path straightforward enough to where you wouldn't get lost, if you know what I mean. But here you can see where I started to realize why Anime Studio is absolutely terrible for textures. no matter how I readjusted all of the shapes on this texture, it just never looked right. It was literally impossible to adjust. And I might even go back and readjust these textures here in a future episode, just because of the fact that I'm not proud of the way these textures worked out. But at least I learned what not to do. So there's always that bonus. And I think this NPC turned out really well, but at the same time, I feel like an idiot for not modeling out a standard NPC, so I will forever hate myself for that. As you see, I get into a little bit more terrain building. Like I said, this is going to be the deep woods. And I played a little bit with the textures here, and I learned a lot through all of this, which I'm going to be applying in my game here in a bit. And as you can see, I did try and play with the particle system, but it did not go that well. And as you can see, I'm kind of like modeling out. This is going to be like a little pond area, which I still need to finish, by the way. I've gotten a lot modeled out on this, but I neglected the deep woods for far too long. So I need to finish out this pond area. It's supposed to be like a healing spring of sorts, and then I have a little creek here that I modeled out, which was relatively easy. And then I always use a default cube for scale to make sure that everything is up to scale the way it's supposed to be. One of these challenges was making sure that everything was open enough and everything wasn't just on a linear path, because I want to make sure I'm avoiding linearity, because this is The Legend of Zelda, for crying out loud. We do not do linearity. Skyward Sword tried that, and look where it got it. That's not to say anything negative about Skyward Sword. But, since this is also the Nintendo 64, I also tried to make sure that there wasn't a ton of geometry. So I tried to use image textures in place of geometry where I could. As you'll see with like these tree lines, I used images instead of textures for that very reason. And like, I learned quite a bit on how to like adjust everything and like make forest look dense, that kind of thing. I could probably make a really good forest if I was working in a high poly environment right now, just because I spend so much time in these woods. No pun intended. But one thing I learned, another thing that I learned while working on these woods was how to like frame up on your images. So like I'll have different cameras at different angles, and then I'll like use the view from those cameras to build my scene to make sure that it's completely photogenic. So like I'll have different cameras at different angles to make sure that everything looks good from every single angle, and then I'll like adjust things whenever I'm in the camera view just to make sure that everything lines up well and that the scene just looks gorgeous from every single angle, which is really important whenever you're making a video game, because of the fact that it's not a photo, so you're looking at everything from every angle, as opposed to just looking at everything from one angle. And it's especially important in this day and age where photo modes in video games is becoming sort of industry standard at this point. So it's important to make sure your game looks really good from all angles. This isn't the 90s anymore. But at this point, this is where I learned how to make actually great looking hair for Nintendo 64 models. And actually it might even be great hair for just general models in general. General character models. So I did a lot of that. I did a lot of adjusting. I had to paint over a lot of the original textures just to make sure everything looked consistent, but I will be scaling everything down. The goal was to just kind of like up the quality on a lot of the super low quality textures, because a lot of these are even are like under 32 by 32 pixels. So the goal is to try and up the quality on a lot of these textures. So So, yeah. That was a part of my plan, was to try and like up the quality and textures wherever I could. So, but at the same time, making sure that everything stays within the resolution of the Nintendo 64. But I'm not afraid of taking the resolution up just a little bit higher for like bigger terrains and stuff. I'm not afraid of that. But I will say one thing, and that is that I'm probably going to maybe redo some of the geometry. I don't know. At this point, probably not. But I can say for certain that I have learned a lot of techniques whenever it comes to making textures and how to map out textures on geometry. But here you'll see I'm working a little bit more on KRITA Village, in particular the Scatula House. Now the Scatula House was quite a bit of a challenge for me. Just matching all of the geometry in the Scatula House was... It was kind of a pain in the neck. I had to remake it a couple of times, and you can watch that if you want to. I have that time lapse up on YouTube if you want to watch it. But even if I don't actually finish this game, I will be posting all of the finished models up on Sketchfab or something so that people can use them or whatever. But here you'll be seeing that I'm using that framing up technique with the camera again. And right here I have my reference image right beside it to make sure that the image that I'm looking at through the camera matches the image in my reference. Always use your references. That's always important. That cannot be understated enough. Whenever you're making anything, use a reference. So, like I said, I'm trying to make everything as seamless as possible, so I don't want there to be like any loading screens in between. I want everything to just be seamless, so all the interiors are going to be modeled out. And also, all of the terrain, all of the overworld is going to connect together, is the plan. I think there might be a couple of exceptions where there's like a loading screen, but I'm trying to reserve that for as little areas as I can, and trying to reserve that for only dungeons and special areas if I can. But like, matching up this lighting was one of the fun challenges of doing these interiors, was because of the fact that making sure the lighting match was really important to me. Really important to me. And as you can see, I am using KRITA now. I think I'm using solely KRITA at this point. I think that NPC was the last time I ever used Anime Studio to like model out my not model out, paint my textures. But like creating the tears on the bottom of this fabric, that was not fun. That was super, super time consuming. But as you can see, like the quality on this texture is way, way better than it would have been in Anime Studio, just because it has more of that organic look to it. Just because it's actually done in an art program as opposed to a vector-based program. Ooh. I cannot understate just how much I have learned in these 30 hours. 30 plus hours, I should say, because of the fact that I've done a lot more work than just 30 hours. And as you can see, I'm modeling out barrels and boxes and all the sort. A lot of times I had to like remap textures and like redo them for the sake of making them better for geometry, I guess. But a lot of this I hadn't had any experience in, so it was really new for me. As you see, I am modeling out a modeling out a bucket from a barrel. I'm starting to lose it. I'm starting to lose my mind here. Thankfully, there's not that much more time left. It's really important as an artist to try and take as many shortcuts as you can, when you can. Of course, you don't take a shortcut over the sake with the sacrifice of quality. You always want to keep the quality as consistent as possible. And whenever taking a shortcut sacrifices that quality, that's whenever you don't take a shortcut. But whenever you can take a shortcut, take that shortcut. Now, this is the bag that I modeled out. This turned out way better than I thought. And that's one of the great things about working on this, is that some things work out, whereas other things had to be completely redone from scratch after I spent an hour on it. Like my Link textures. And even though the model is still the version 2.0 model, I can't even say it's version 2.0 model. It's more like version 2.3 model. The textures are going to get completely redone. But like I said before, a lot of the things that I wanted to do was like remodel the terrain and like expand it so like everything is scaled up. And just, it's absolutely amazing to me that I was able to do this all in just 30 hours and just see how much I could get done in just 1 hour in general. Just one person get this much done in 1 hour. It's just kind of surreal to me that I could get all this done just by myself. It makes me wonder how much more I could get done with help. By the way, if you want to help, I'll be totally welcome to the help if anybody wants to help. But that's not the point. The point is that you could be doing this if you wanted to. It's not as hard of work as you would think. It just takes a lot of time and dedication, honestly. And it's like, all you have to do is just spend an hour, just see how much you can get done in an hour. You'd be surprised how much you can get done in an hour. I'm so glad that I filmed myself doing this entire thing just because of the fact that I'm able to inspire myself just how much work I was able to get done just by myself and just looking how much I could get done in an hour. And it's just really inspiring and motivating to me. And as you see here, this is where I started to completely redo all the textures for Link at this point because of the fact that I realized that the look that I was getting from the textures I had produced in Anime Studio was not the look that I was going for, and so I just completely redid all the textures in order to give it a completely organic look to it. And as you'll see, I'll use the textures from the official artwork to try and match that up. And actually, we're getting pretty close to the end of this huge time lapse here. Wow, I can't believe I got all this done in 30 hours. I can't believe it was only 30 hours, honestly. It feels like a lot more. Oh, it just makes me wonder how much more I can get done in another 30 hours. Which, at this point, I'm going to be... from this point on, I'm going to be focusing a lot more on, working on Link's animations and, trying to get an actual character working in Godot. So that I can, import all the models and then just get it to where you can move the character around. Maybe release a demo if I get enough done. But I can guarantee you that I will be releasing a demo once I have just a little bit done on this game. Once I have basic combat, basic enemies, just basic character movement and interactive environments, maybe some interactive NPCs, I will be releasing a demo of this game. And you will be able to play it. But one thing that I want to discuss right now before we get to the end is just how much better Link's textures look after I redid all of them in KRITA. It's just kind of amazing to me just how much better it looks. But let me just say And my closing statements, just keep watching. You can leave any criticism that you want. If you want to critique my work, go ahead, feel free to. I welcome the criticism. I'm looking for any opportunity I can to improve this and just make it look as good as I possibly can. So if you have any advice, any critiques, any ideas at all, just leave them down, just comment them down below. I'm always looking for ideas, so if you have an idea, I might bring it down. But, looks like I'm at the end here. So I guess all that's left to say is, just keep watching. Just keep watching my content. I'll try and make some more traditional videos, so more of my, like, gaming videos, Zelda videos, especially as E3 is coming. I may or may not. I guess you'll see in the future. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a great day and have a blessed week, and I will see you all later.